So the song is about when you are trying to be single or you're trying to prove to yourself that you can do something on your own, you can drive yourself insane unless you actually use your friends and family and reach out to them. Because sometimes I've definitely done this where it's like, okay, I need to be single, so I should just not talk to anyone, or oh, I need to focus on figuring myself out, so I'll just like isolate myself, read books, and get lost in whatever that is. And then you realize that you're going insane, and you don't know why, because you went on the journey to like figure out what was wrong, and you made a new problem for yourself. So the biggest part of this song was learning and relearning over and over again that the people around you are necessary tools to free your mind of whatever thing you think you need to go through alone. And that you don't need one single person. Like, you don't need to date somebody to feel confident or love yourself. You need to date a friend group and your family. Like, have it spread and back and forth. I'm not saying that right, but
no, the first and foremost, when you're feeling like you need to be by yourself and alone and focus on yourself, that is a win in and of itself. And there are so many gems you can get out of just being alone and creating and working and reading a book or whatever. Like, there's no point of life where that's not going to be necessary. Like, just to have that quiet and that stillness with yourself, especially as artists and creatives, like that's where all of our good stuff comes from for the most part. I feel like the core of it. And secondly, I'm thinking, even in all that creative whatever time, no matter what you've made, you need to filter it out with the people around you. Like, I keep getting this image of, well, we've talked about it, where you can have a flame, you can have a torch, like you can make your fire work, you can breathe into it, you got it started, you got it lit, but that thing's gonna go out unless you put it in a fireplace, unless you add it to the other logs, unless there's more air fluctuating, there's more heat fluctuating, because you can't do that by yourself. And I feel like this song for me was the same thing. Like, I'm trying to get so hard on myself as far as like working on me and not being in a relationship and yada, yada, yada. And it's so easy if you try and do that, where you're just going to get, your own mind is going to get whirled up into this whatever, because you haven't been letting other people in to help you work, expand those ideas and let them breathe.
It's like the never-ending echo chamber of, you have a thought and it never gets to release because it just keeps repeating in your head.
Yeah. And then, family, friends, even if it comes down to it, a significant other, even if you're trying to be single. I don't know. I feel like we think we can do so much growth on our own, and we can to some degree, but it's nothing like having a close collective community of people that are in the similar mindset or same mindset as you.
A lot of times it feels like you don't want to bother someone, or you don't want to bother your friends, or you're like, people are more likely to just internalize and be like, oh, I don't want to project this on anybody or dump it on anyone, so I'm just going to keep it up inside until it tears me apart.
Self-destruction. To a T.
And I'm trying to think about the song specifically, because the chorus was like, you can try to run the Paris or bail, but you'll never leave your mental prison until you
find someone to pay your bail.
Yeah.
Because
you can't pay your own.
You can't pay your own bail. I mean, if you
maybe you
money.
could. I don't know how that works. Can you have your own bank? Like, pay? Can you have your bank? Can you write a check from your own? I feel like you can. So yeah, it's still true.
It's still true. And the first lyrics, being self-sufficient doesn't mean you're all alone. Fastest way to getting there is the people on your phone. Like, send a text. If you're losing your mind, reach out. there's always going to be somebody on the other end of your phone or the other end of walking outside of your house and being with people that's going to actually rejuvenate you and keep you sane.
And if you don't feel like you have that kind of friend group or
Oh God,
person to
message
like,
us on Instagram.
yeah,
Message. I mean,
no, I
with
mean,
discretion.
yeah, I mean, it's understandable that we can't be the solution to like a ton of people's problems because you know we have our own and we only have so much time or whatever, and like emotional energy. But that doesn't mean that we would be your only answer or that there is a right answer. So finding a community group like painting, like I don't know, like literally anything in your community or anything to get outside your comfort zone. It might be a little counterintuitive to like be frustratedly alone and struggling with something and then going out and meeting people. But
it's terrifying.
Yeah, but on the other side of that is like
everything
bliss.
you need. It's heaven.
Yeah.
Community is heaven.
I mean, some people do suck, so that's not out of the question. But
the more that you hone in on who you have around you, who's feeding you, what kind of information is coming into your ear, like faith comes through hearing, the faster you are figuring out who's not in that tribe. What energy do I not need to have around me when I'm trying to reach out? You know, who specifically can I reach out to right now that's not going to be judgmental or trying to tell you exactly what you need to do? Like, who's just going to listen and support and whatever. And when we wrote this song, like, I was living alone in St. Paul. Like, it might have been Monticello even, or St. Cloud, but I was in definitely phases of like trying to focus on myself to the point of isolation. Like, I didn't have a community there really set up. I didn't have, like, in the cities especially, like, you're in a new town, you can't really be going, it's like this whole other ballpark. But my one like genuine connection and friend that I had was going down to Cato and recording with Jared. And even there were so many times where I was like, I don't want to make this trip. Like, what if we don't actually get anything done? And every time it wasn't about that at all. It didn't matter what we were producing or what came out of what that time. Like, it ended up being sick every time, but I never went in with that mindset of like, we're going to make something sick. Yeah. It was just so good to have a close friend and confidant that can just slowly kind of peel away the layers that start to accumulate when you're by yourself, you know?
Yeah, music has really felt like therapy.
Oh yeah.
Through like that's one of the biggest benefits I've had in making music is being able to like understand my own problems more for myself. And we even made a song for one of your projects called Musical Therapy. But yeah, self-sufficient. Try to find friends, family, or whoever you can to, you know, and
pay your bail.
And don't only project. You know, like take some of theirs too. Like that's part of that thing is like going back and forth and sharing. And you know, you'll never get it 100% perfect, and just try not to overthink it and just like, you know, love somebody.
Even if you don't have the capacity to be loving people, once somebody gives you some love, it'll fill up your cup. And then once your cup's full, you got to let it out. So give it back when you're ready, you know?
Yeah, it's like a really complicated
process.
It's like a really simple idea that feels like kind of complicated to explain, but the biggest thing is just like, don't try to, there's no pride you can gain from doing everything on your own, or like being self-sufficient is knowing that you can't be solo dolo forever.
And we've talked about that with other artists. Like, even if when you're your biggest fear, like even you getting to the top and you leave everybody else behind, like, okay, you got to the top. What is there to who's celebrating that with you? You know, who's I don't know, like, who's with you up there? Because you can't get to the top of the mountain alone. There's no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That just reminded me, I watched Alpinist.
Mm.
I even posted like a brain dump that I had
Mm.
after watching it, because he was, spoiler alert, he was
Mm-hmm.
25 and he climbed a mountain that had ice, snow, and rock without any ropes. And it was
Oh.
like one of the hardest mountains in the world.
Okay.
And he was 25.
Shit.
And well, he'd been like doing it forever, and that's just like what he loved to do, and he didn't want to die.
Yeah.
And he got to the top of that mountain, but then he ended up dying in an avalanche like 2 months later on an easier mountain
Holy shit.
with someone else. And it seemed like a whatever, but it was just crazy because he was 25 and he died doing like
What he loved.
what he loved.
Mm-hmm.
But he was on the edge of like what reality is. Like his whole practice was climbing a mountain by the scathe of
the skin of your teeth,
mm-hmm. the fingertips, or just like
mm-hmm.
the edge of a blade,
mm-hmm.
trusting that ice won't break.
Mm-hmm.
Like that, he was like, yeah, there's like a high chance that like my environment will just like let go, and then he's just dead.
Mm-hmm.
But he successfully did it so many times, and then the craziest part. Okay, this has turned into a totally different thing. But he found somebody in the beginning of this journey that he found like a partner that like solo climbed with him, like his girlfriend, and they were super close. And he even like made a video on top of the mountain, like wishing he could come down to like see her or whatever. And then he dies at 25, and she's left knowing what that type of love feels like, but never having
they got
to live
to the
forever.
peak together.
But she has to like live forever knowing what that felt like without having it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And they never got to recover his body. So he's still on that mountain because there was an avalanche that covered him. Oh, so she climbs the mountain next to it, and she takes a video, and she's like, "You're right over there." And I'm like,
"Oh my
God, no!" Like, it just was like, oh my goodness. That was like, I was just felt, I just can't imagine what that felt like. Yeah.
I feel like it sounds like grief. It's like literally like, the people that died are around you, but you can't see them.
Oh man.
But that love's still there.
Yeah.
It's not going anywhere.
God. This turned into a very different thing.
Oh, why did you talk about that? That's so sad.
Well, that's our song, Self-Sufficient. Oh, man.
You might have to cut that off. Okay, thanks for listening.
Right.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.